Hello everyone. Welcome back to the Martini. I hope you're doing well and I hope you're having an amazing day. It is currently a Saturday evening and boy, what a day I've had. No, to be honest, what a week I have had. Let me just give you a quick recap. On Monday, I went to pick up my family from the airport because they, thankfully, had the opportunity to come visit me to see me graduate on Tuesday. Quite a few people ask me if I'm going to make an episode about the graduation ceremony and the entire experience, but to be honest, I'm not entirely sure I want to. Because I feel like there are certain things that should stay off the internet. I feel very protective over my personal life, over my family, and I'm very selective about what I share. I know it seems like I share everything on here and that you know all about me, but let's keep it real. That is not the case. I have full control over the narrative and its editing here, and I'm very much aware of how dangerous it can be to share something online. Because even if you delete it later, it is never actually deleted for real. Once it's on the internet, it's forever on the internet. So I feel the need to protect certain people and emotions and memories because I want to save them just for myself. I don't want everything I do and say and don't do and don't say to be out accessible to the public. Even if not a lot of people listen to my podcast, it is still accessible. And that is not my opinion about the internet only, by the way. It is how I feel about stuff in general. The most precious things, I believe, should be kept close and not shared with a lot of people so that they can stay just yours and so that nobody can take them away from you or take away part of their magic. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that the most valuable things should be kept private so that nobody can take away their value. At least that's how I see things as of now. Of course, I don't see Dirty Martini as a platform that could potentially threaten me or harm me or be in my disadvantage or anything. It is just that certain things I want to just write down in my diary and keep close to myself and myself only. And I still have not decided if graduation is one of those things. Watch me eat my words and publish next week an extremely detailed episode about everything that happened and why it happened. But until I decide if I want to share this story with you or not, I will just say that it was an extremely beautiful and special moment, not just in my own life, but in our family's life. And I feel extremely grateful that they had the opportunity to come in and share this experience with me. Perhaps this is why I feel so overprotective about the entire experience. Because it is so near and dear to my heart, and I don't want anything to potentially cloud the memory of it all. I'm just thankful. So, apart from graduation this week, I have just been working, picking up shifts left and right because, okay, let's be real for a second here. There is something that I do want to share because, well, you know those streets interviews where people just answer random questions? So I keep getting ones that are about finances when you're in your 20s. And university students are out there sharing that they have like 10 or 20,000 euros or dollars or whatever the currency in their savings account. And I feel like this narrative, even though it can be motivating to make you lock in and hustle so that you can achieve it as well, it can also, on the other hand, make you feel extremely behind. Because I will be honest with you, Like, the reason I have been picking up so many shifts and actually haven't had a day off from university or work or both is because I haven't had that little money in my bank account in years. And I have noticed that the social media narrative that is being pushed is not true. It is the exception. It is not the rule. That's what I mean by when I say that it's not true, that it's not universally applicable. It is not a rule. Not everyone who is in their early 20s can afford to save up that much money. Not everyone has the privilege to be making a lot. Not everyone has the privilege to be even making enough money. And not everyone has an allowance from their parents. Of course, I'm not trying to undermine those people's success by saying that they got handed the money. I just want to also introduce the other side of the coin, no pun intended, or maybe pun a little bit intended, but which is that sometimes you're making money to be able to pay the right now things, the immediate things. And unfortunately, not a lot, if anything, can be saved. And trust me, I'm very good at budgeting. And I may not have the best financial culture, but I have been taught how to be mindful and responsible when it comes to spending money, which I'm super thankful about. But sometimes it is not about how responsible and mindful you are. There are so many factors that go into it, and people don't talk about them. And they should. Like, for instance, I, unfortunately, was barely able to find a minimum wage job, let alone anything else. Because of university, I am unable to work full-time, which means that monthly, I'm not even earning the typical minimum wage. And so on and so forth. There are so many other factors which influence my situation. And I feel like transparency when it comes to talking about finances is so important because, let's be real, money is important and money matters. And the people who tell you otherwise simply because they have access to enough money to live comfortably. Nobody here is talking about becoming filthy rich. I'm not talking about being on the top 100 richest people's list of Forbes. I'm talking about being able to live in a way where money is not the main income of stress. Because financial worries are very significant. And if you can spare yourself even a part of them, then that's amazing. Money may not be everything, and money may not buy you happiness per se, but money definitely gives you access to things which can be utilized to achieve otherwise unattainable things. So nobody can convince me that money isn't important. That's why we should talk about it, and talk about it with honesty. I don't understand why there is this societal shyness when it comes to sharing what we earn and what we spend. Money shouldn't be a taboo topic. How are we supposed to learn about managing it, navigating it, if we don't get cultured on the topic from people who have experience? I don't care about sharing how much I earn because only then can, for instance, I compare whether I'm earning enough for what I'm doing. And that's the least. There are so many other reasons why transparent money talk is important. However, I'm not a financial advisor, so don't turn to me for money advice because I am unable to give it to you. I'm just not educated enough to be giving you advice with all the science behind it. I'm just here to talk about my own personal experience. But about a social media thing and comparing myself to people my age who are apparently far better well off financially than me, not all of us are millionaires out of the womb. And I'm not saying that I haven't been privileged or anything. I'm just trying to imply that we should not let people who are way out of our tax bracket and whose like we shouldn't let their lifestyle make us feel like we aren't working hard enough, like we aren't doing good enough. At the end of the day, we're all trying to survive, to have a roof over our heads, to have food on the table, to have clothes on our back. And if sometimes securing those things is the only thing we can do, then that's enough. I know we say that we all have the same 24 hours, but that is not true. I have a particular set of 24 hours, and Beyonce, thank you, Beyonce. Thank you for everything, Beyonce. And Beyonce has a different set of 24 hours because, for example, she doesn't have to worry about the things I have to worry about, and I don't have to worry about the things she worries about. But like, I'm not saying that money solves every issue. I'm just saying that it can definitely aid the solving of a very big deal of issues. So if someone is out there and just like me is worrying that they are not earning enough because they're comparing themselves to people they see online or even to people in their offline world, cut yourself some slack and give yourself a proper pat on the back for how much effort you're putting into your pure survival. And I'm proud of you. I could be living very differently and I would be telling you very different stories if I just accepted the offers the creepy men in my DMs are giving me. I don't know how those people find me. And I don't know why, me particularly, but they do. They just offer to pay me for existing. And honestly, I do deserve to be paid just for existing. I am such a treasure and a gift to people, and they should be paying me to just be in my presence. No, but like all jokes aside, like I do recognize that a big chunk of these offers are a scam. There's no denying it, like a new profile following 3 people. You know it's not real. But I fear some of the offers I have received are legit. And I don't know how those people find me. My account is private. I mean, well, as of recently, but it is private. I have this one friend who legit got paid to insult someone, like to text them insulting stuff. And she got paid like bang. So, hey, no king shaming if you can profit off the king. No, hey, it's just that men are weird. And here's the thing. They have been sexualizing us for years. And I fear they're just mad we are now, as a female union, capitalizing on their predatory behaviors. Hey, hate the game, not the player. You cannot hate a woman for having an OnlyFans and calling her names when you're the one consuming her content. When there are clearly men who are begging her and paying her to do it. You're just mad that she cracked the code and is profiting off of you. And of course she is. Because the thing is, whether that woman had an OnlyFans or not, she would be sexualized. Because that is unfortunately the reality we live in. So, if unfortunately there's no escaping this reality, you gotta give some credit to the women who adjust this reality to their benefit. Go get that back, queen. Go get that back. I don't see anything wrong with it. It's not the one who makes a product or content. It is the one who is seeking it who is to blame. What I find really interesting about my perception of this is that I totally support any woman who does it, but I cannot bring myself to do it as well. I just cannot. I really sometimes wish I didn't have that established self-perception and maybe even this, let's call it a moral compass due to lack of better words, but like I really wish sometimes I didn't have this moral compass that I do. And I know you may twist my words right now and make it sound like I'm contradicting myself, But don't worry, as per usual, I have an over explanation of this double standard when it comes to me and to others. I am 2 steps ahead. I am always 2 steps ahead. Okay, just a side note, I have no clue what is going on with Nicocado Avocado. I knew of him, but I have never watched his content because I don't like mukbangs. Just watching someone eat and chew with their mouth open, oh my god, I'm gagging, and make slurping noises and talk about whatever with food in their mouth. Oh, that's just not for me. But if this is indeed a social experiment that he did, if that is not just him trolling the internet right now, then that would be genius. When that thing happened, all I could think about is how I wish I was still doing media studies, because my professors and I would be having an amazing discussion about the social impact of it all, if again it is indeed a social experiment. But because we don't know, I don't have access to those teachers anymore. I will just rant about it to my friends who genuinely couldn't care less. Oh, by the way, when I say couldn't care less, please, everybody note that I am saying couldn't care less. If you say could care less, that's defeating the entire purpose, because it means that you could be caring less. So it's not giving what you think it's giving. Please note this. Okay, thank you. Anyways, back to our topic of profiting off of men's predatory behaviors. So, what do I mean when I say a moral compass? Because I don't see those women that do it as immoral. I actually think that it's a really nice way to exploit the system that was built to ruin you and make it run for you. What I mean about morality is in the sense that I was brought up to think that this type of relationships are not the best, to put it simply. And this, as a lot of things about the way I was brought up, established a double standard. Now, what do I mean about this? It means that I don't hold myself to the same standards as other people, at least for most things. Maybe not academia, but I will touch upon this as well. Basically, I'm much harsher on myself and far more demanding when it comes to my actions and behaviors than when it comes to those of others. And I want to learn to be more forgiving to myself, but it is proving to be very, very difficult because I always want more for myself. It is like I'm never satiated. It's like I could always do more, be better, do better. And that can be very, very exhausting because sometimes you don't need to be perfect to be great. You don't need to be perfect to be enough. And I'm trying to learn this and unlearn the things from before. But it is not a linear upwards path, unfortunately. And hopefully, one day I will crack the code and learn to cut myself some slack the way I do to others. But until then, I will be this overachiever and self-underappreciator, I guess. Like, for instance, with the OnlyFans and the quote-unquote sponsorship offers. Of course, I would never judge anyone if they got a sugar daddy or sugar mommy or if they produced explicit content for OnlyFans. I don't care. Go get that back. The problem is that I would judge myself if I were to do it. It is very interesting how forgiving I am when it comes to other people. But when it comes to me, I always hold myself accountable and up to the highest possible standards. And I feel like it is because on a very deep level, I have a severe form of internalized sexism and discrimination when it comes to, for example, being abroad. And I'm like, oh, you don't belong here, you don't belong there, blah, 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 blah. But let's leave the self-discrimination on geographical and racial basis for another episode. Let's stick to the internalized double standard. And well, while this is nice on the one hand, because it means that I want what I think is best for me, and I want to achieve it in a way which I see appropriate and correct for myself. Again, not that the others are inappropriate or incorrect, they're just not my path. But this entire thing is, on the other hand, also putting a lot of pressure on myself to always be up to par. And my standards when it comes to myself are pretty high. Because, okay, this will make me sound extremely cocky, but I know what I'm capable of. But the thing is, over time, I have proven to myself that I can deal with whatever life throws at me. And like 99.9% of the time, I have dealt with it alone. And it's like, if I have done it once, I'm convinced I can do it again and even outdo myself. This, I won't lie to you, it can become quite unhealthy. It can be unsustainable because I tend to overlook the circumstances that I'm in sometimes. I tend to sometimes overlook how things and how I have changed. And those high standards that I hold myself to are sometimes too demanding and even unrealistic. And the possible outcomes are two. I either do not achieve the thing I set out to achieve, and I feel disappointed in myself, and I beat myself up, and this opens up an entire new spectrum of problems and creates an entire new world of self-deprecation storms. Or on the initially brighter side, I achieve it, and what I have noticed about myself achieving something is that I don't necessarily feel pride. I feel more of a relief and some sort of a, well, duh, in the sense that if I achieved it, then it's totally doable and nothing too special. And that is why I said it is just initially the brighter side. Because I seem to not be able to let myself have nice things. Ever. It is like I want to self-sabotage myself, even though I don't think I want to, but I subconsciously do it, or at least my inner voice does it. And I'm still in the process of learning that there's difference between myself and my inner voice. Only rather recently, like 1 or 2 years ago, did it occur to me that those two are not necessarily the same person. And I'm in the process of either deafening that inner voice because she is very mean, or at least making her sound more gentle and self-appreciative. And I just find this so particularly interesting. Okay, true, there's no denying it. There are certain things I have done that genuinely make me feel proud of myself, but they aren't too many, and they really have to be like extra. And also over time, the pride fades slowly, and it's just a relief, or like even some sort of, oh yeah, I did that, it's no big deal, that just sets in instead of the pride. What I come to feel when I achieve something I set out to achieve is that I don't know if it's necessarily reassurance, but it is some sort of mentality that is making me feel okay. Not in the sense that I feel accomplished, but I feel something like, okay, you apparently can do it. And it genuinely, the best way I can describe it, because I feel like I lack the vocabulary when it comes to putting this particular thing into words, is a relief. But it's not pure relief. There's something more to it that I still cannot pinpoint. And sometimes, yeah, it's not even like that. It's just sometimes something to tick off from the to-do list. This is very hurtful because it takes away the joy of accomplishment because you never see yourself as accomplished. It is like it turns to be something that you had to do and you did. So you did your job. What do you expect? Some special treatment that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing? That's my thought process. And I, like, now even saying it out loud, I recognize how ridiculous it sounds, but like, that's how I've been thinking for the past whatever years that I've been conscious. Like, and it's very difficult to unlearn it. Instead of it being, wow, you achieved a dream that you worked so hard for and you earned and you really put in the effort, so enjoy the fruit of the seeds you planted and nurtured, it's just meh. And also there's this little voice in my head that is a bit, oh, not a bit, it is very underappreciative and undermining in the sense that it just tells me, well, if you did it, then it mustn't be that hard, right? It's like I think something isn't special once I achieve it because it is apparently doable. Even if everybody else thinks it's special, even if everybody else thinks it's something wow, I'm like, well, I didn't reinvent the wheel. I didn't change the world. And why should I reinvent the wheel and change the world to be someone special? Like, for example, now with graduating, like at first I was happy, like, yay, I achieved my dream. I achieved the mission I set out with when I came to the Netherlands. Like, and then I was like, but it's just a bachelor's degree. Millions and billions of other people have done it. I'm not the only one. I'm not the first one. I'm just another one. And that is just a crazy way to approach things and such an unhealthy way, because in my life that was a monumental moment and I don't want to take it away from myself. Yes, it is just a bachelor's degree, but there are other billions of people who don't even have that. And also, like, why should I compare myself to someone and see myself as having achieved quote unquote more to see myself as worthy? Because that's just not okay. There are always people who will have achieved not less but just different things than me. And like, me wanting everything for myself, does that mean that I'll never be satiated? Does that mean that I'll never feel accomplished and joyful about what I've done? I don't want it to continue like this, because it can be very exhausting, because I just want to feel accomplished. And that is a very exhausting way to live, in particular because, again, you feel like you're never doing anything special. You're just doing the minimum. You're doing what is required of you. And if it is something that is required, then you should be able to do it, right? It's like, how do I explain it? If you're given a task, even if you were the one who gave yourself the task. So if you're given a task, then you should be able to do it, because if you are unable to, you wouldn't have been given it. And if you do it, then you just did what was expected of you. You just did what you had to do, so no surprises there. But if you fail to do it, you see yourself as disappointment. It's like there is no winning outcome. I cannot find the middle ground. I'm either or I'm like, you are a failure. In either case, there's no sense of something monumentally positive. And that is just not the best way to perceive yourself, if I'm being honest. Because it condemns you to an eternity of self-insufficiency and self-underappreciation. When it comes to others, I praise them for just breathing. So why can I not praise myself for just showing up? Why is this double standard? This is a tendency I noticed quite a while ago. And I think it stems from the fact that I have always strived to be an overachiever. I have always strived to deliver, to outperform, because only then and then only did I feel like I earned my place wherever I was. It's like if I didn't over deliver, then I disappointed. And that's just not true. And you know how? Or maybe you actually have never had to go through this and you don't know because you're an actual sane person. But let's assume you know. So, you know how sometimes something is presented to you as something difficult, as something not everyone can do, and then you set out to do it, and you're under this pressure to achieve it, and you see why it is regarded as something difficult, because it is difficult, but eventually you do it, and now it's not something difficult because A, you already went through it and you focus on the result rather than the journey, and B, because you feel like if you did it, then it's doable and not as hard as people present it to be. So yeah, anyways, I have recognized this problem a long time ago because of my desire to always be at 110%. And I have started to work on solving that issue because it really is very, very stressful. And I don't think it is a sustainable way of living. And even more, I feel like it is a form of self-sabotage because in your head, if you're always at 110% and 110% becomes your natural state and you're an overachiever, then just giving 100% doesn't feel like you're doing enough. So you strive to give 120 to outperform yourself, to become better, to do better. And then 110 doesn't feel like you are doing enough. And then 120 becomes your natural state and you strive to achieve 130 and so on and so forth. And it just creates this terrible constant loop of putting yourself under pressure, always demanding more of yourself and always thinking like you're not doing enough. Until at a certain point you cannot do this anymore, and a burnout is the least you would have to deal with, to be honest. Like there will be far worse repercussions than burnout. And as you can imagine, solving this tendency that I have sustained for years on end is not an easy and not a one and done process. What I have come to realize is that it sometimes even makes me insensitive to other people, especially in academic settings. So this is like perhaps the opposite. So you know how I mentioned that I'm very forgiving to other people's and not forgiving to myself? Well, when it comes to academia in particular, and I don't know why academia, but it's only applicable to academia. So I don't know why, but in that setting, the double standard does not apply. The standards I hold myself to are applicable to others. And what I mean by this is that I say it to myself, never to them, of course. But like in my head, I'm like, if I can do it, then so can they. Because if I can work and study, then they who, for example, don't have to work should be able to do it as well. Because if I must juggle with 3 balls, then they should be able to just handle 1 or 2, right? And that is such a terrible way to approach people. And it's such unrealistic expectations to have to put on them. Because I tell myself, if I can deal with this while I'm dealing with 100 other things, then so can they. Because we aren't that different. And that is so wrong. Like that is such a wrong way to think about life and others. Because others are not you and you're not others. And while on the surface it may seem like you have the same resources, the same perceptions, it may seem like they have less to deal with. So even if those seem to hold true for you, you should still not expect others to perform at your level. I feel like we should all collectively learn to be more forgiving when it comes to other making mistakes or not reacting in the way we expected them to. Because you cannot blame others for not reacting the way you would react in their position. Because they're not you and you're not in their position. Here's the thing. The water that hardens the egg softens the potato. What I mean is that the same situation, the same circumstances affect different people differently. One may swim while another is drowning, and they're both in the same pool. So once I came to realize this, I started, or at least tried to start, to be more forgiving to people not meeting the standards I hold myself to. Because those people are not me, and they experience life differently. See, it is just very interesting how in certain situations and certain circumstances, I'm very forgiving to others, and in other situations and other circumstances, I can be judgmental, even if it is just in my mind and never out loud. So it is like I have double standards about double standards. I will never not be amazed by how the human mind works. And what is the last thing which I think feeds this narrative of self underappreciation and inability to be proud is the fact that I was taught to be humble. I was taught to be grounded, and my parents did their best to keep me grounded throughout my entire life. Again, not just by my parents actually, but from the environment in school and in gymnastics and friendships and everyone. I was just taught and forced to be humble. And what I have noticed is that people don't necessarily love people who know their worth. People don't appreciate people who are proud of themselves because it reminds them of their own struggles. Growing up, I would very often have to dim my own light and tiptoe around the people I was around so that I don't hurt their egos. And it's an ego thing. And that just made me become immune to pride over time in whatever I would do, because I could not share my joy or enthusiasm because they could potentially hurt those people. Like, people not being joyful about you being joyful is a red flag. I'm sorry. By the way, don't worry, I'm no longer surrounded by those people who used to make me feel like this. Now I make the conscious decision to surround myself with people who celebrate my success as their own and who help me become a better supporter of myself. It is just that because I had so many relationships with people who made me make myself smaller because they didn't feel comfortable with their own minuscule existence, as terrible as that sounds, it's because of this that I'm still on a deeper level connected to this mentality. Because also, those were some of the first close friendships that I experienced, the first close relationships that I experienced. And they primed me in a way to seek that, in a way to see this as the correct way, because I didn't know anything else. But now I do. And I'm trying to avoid those things and actually surround myself with people who will let me be proud, who will want me to be proud, who want me to be joyful and will let me be joyful. People who will let me succeed and people who want me to succeed. But I'm sick and tired of making myself smaller to not shadow or tower over someone. I'm done. And I don't ever want to go back. And I'll try not to. I want to unlearn this and I want to be proud of who I am and what I do. And if someone is not okay with me succeeding and being happy with my success, then they definitely don't have a place at my table. Just let me cook. I may not know sometimes how to follow the recipe, but I promise to stir up something worthwhile. I have to admit, I didn't expect this episode would take such a turn. I wanted to give you a recap of my week, and we reached day Tuesday. I actually, ended up just doing a deep dive into my psyche instead of just doing, hey, on Monday I did this, on Tuesday I did this, and on Wednesday, Saturday, blah, blah. Even though this is, again, just the surface of it all. But hey, I have identified a big problem and I have a general idea of what the root causes can be and how they manifest. And admitting it in front of myself and you that this is something that I struggle with and something that I want to work on is perhaps the most difficult part, or at least it's a start. Now I need to attack the issue. I just wish those things were more talked about because I'm certain that this is not an original experience. And if I didn't feel so alone in my uphill battles, maybe it would be easier to overcome them. Although I really hate being dependent on someone and relying on them, but that is a completely different topic. I think I should do a test to see what my attachment style is. If we haven't figured it out by now, I think we all can guess what it is, but hey, let's stay in denial. Even though denial is a river in Egypt and your husband is gay. You know what? I feel like I'm not saying anything anymore, so I might as well go eat my lasagna. I want to go watch a comedy on Netflix because I had an extremely long day and an extremely terrible shift at work, and I just deserve to rest because I need to do it all over again tomorrow. Yay! Like, do I want to watch a comedy and make myself feel lighter, or do I want to break my own heart by watching The Notebook? And also the new season of Heartstopper came out. You know what? This is an exciting night in the making. Watch me just stop recording and fall asleep immediately. That's probably what's going to happen. Hey, I'm turning into a grandma. Well, thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you found it interesting. I hope it prompted some questions, which would make you get to know yourself better. And if not, at least I hope you enjoyed listening to me spiral. Well, guys, stay hydrated, wear sunscreen, and don't support genocide. Bye!